Bună ziua! Hello everybody. My name is Alma Preda and I am delighted to be part of the Light Edu Symposium in Timișoara. As Anta already said, we're quite a big team. I'm just a representative of Sin.Studio. We're a dynamic and fun group of young architects in Romania. These are the members of our group, and I hope you'll enjoy some of our experiments regarding the light in architecture, interior architecture, and interactive installations. Sin.Studio stands for Synesthesia Studio, and we really hope we will further on have the chance to embody in our experiments the diverse sensations as primary and also as secondary ideas of our projects. Our presentation analyzes the light as purpose and secondary the light as means. And at the end of the projects we developed, we try to draw a conclusion regarding the way light can be used, or the way we can use light in our experiments. The first project has been developed some years ago, and it's a self-powered project. It's a research topic that the group found regarding the unilluminated staircases and the high-density bedroom residencies so widely spread in Romania. The main addressed issue, as I already said, are these staircases, but the function of the installation can be reinterpreted in diverse spaces. The group was sustained and helped by the teaching assistant Bogdan Demetrescu and, of course, Polytechnica University of Timișoara. As I said, the group addressed the bedroom neighborhoods and the mostly gloomy spaces in our everyday life that we use in our everyday life. The unilluminated staircases are usually not positive spaces we have to encounter and experience every day. Therefore, the group searched for a proposal to bring a new idea to these mostly gloomy and dark spaces. And the proposal is a very economic one, user-friendly one, and friendly to the environment. As a result of the research, probably more than 40% of the population of Timișoara, for example, that live in such housing blocks could benefit from a better illuminated staircase, using natural light, of course. So, the question is, how can we produce such a feasible light installation that uses natural light, that encourages the interaction between the user and this installation, and also the relationship between people. That's also facile to maintain and has low consumption. This is the proposed installation. It's consisting of two parts. The upper part that's put on the upper part of the building outside that captures the light of the environment, and the interior part, the light channeling tube inside the staircase. We can also see detail of the channeling tube. It's made up of a series of elements that can be, as previously said and as depicted in the first picture, moved along. Therefore, all users or all people can interact with the light source. The solar concentrator on the upper part captures the exterior light, natural light, and redirects it inside the staircase during daytime. And also during nighttime, because of the fluorescent paint that's used on the elements, it can emit some subtle shades of light during nighttime also. A quick glimpse into the functioning part of the installation. As I already said, the solar tracking concentrator is made up of some petals that are mirrors and that concentrate the exterior light and redirect the exterior light inside the staircase. Using some light sensors and stepper motors, these petals move around, determining the best angle for the light to be concentrated and redirected inside the staircase. Of course, the second part is, as you already understand, it's the tube consisting of reflective segments. The conic shape enables the tube to move, and as you push the tube in one direction or another, you can direct the light in the area that you wish for. This is a simulation of how something like that would look like inside the staircase. You definitely recognize the upper part concentrator, the inside tubes, and the actual installation, resulting in, we'd like to say, vivid interior staircase that's well lit. This brings us to the first part of our presentation, the first encounter, visual encounter with the project, and simulation of how something like that would work in real life. In this project, we used light as the main purpose. This innovative idea opened some unexpected and really nice roads for the team. Some of the, just to mention a few of the wins, I would say that the honorable mention at the International Students Velux Award and the first prize at the Art World International Academy would be very nice thing to emphasize. And it's also opened a long road of collaboration of one of the team members with Zaha Hadid's architects in London. The next project sees light a bit differently. The next project uses light not as its main purpose and as its main way of interacting with the people, but as a metaphor. It's a private project this time of a concept jewelry store. The task was to embody the concept of the jewelry that's made out of a capsule that encapsulates my dearest wish. Physically, you would buy a piece of jewelry that you always wear with yourself or not, that encapsulates a small note or something that's very dear to you. And by that trying to communicate more with the public and the customers from the side of the retailer. This was the idea that the retailer wanted to transmit. Therefore, we had to think about a space that would mean protection and trust, that would reinterpret the dialogue that usual retailer has with its customer, and that that transmits the idea that customer is protected and that his or her dearest wish is protected. Therefore, we chose to play a bit with the shape of the space. We proposed a spherical interior space that in this project is born and generated by light. The retailer told us that he would like for the jewelry to represent the sending of a wish towards the universe and therefore the fulfilling of that wish. And in our discussions we came to the idea that light would be the only possible building material, let's call it like that, to transmit such a metaphor and to materialize the concept. Therefore, the interior space that we propose would use light through optical fibers that would characterize the space and the jewelry store and its concept through subtlety, through delicacy, and also through the spherical space, through protection. Here would be a simulation of the concept store, which would be made up of a lot of optical fibers. The slimmer tubes are the optical fibers, and the larger ones are the ones displaying the jewelry. This would be the only space that such a shop would have. There's also obviously a private space that's in the back for all the functional areas. And the idea behind this proposal is the fact that every time a customer buys jewelry and writes his own dearest wish on that piece of paper that he puts inside the capsule, a new light is being lit. A new light meaning such a small sparkle materialized through the optical fiber. The idea was for the customer to create the space of the jewelry store himself. Therefore, with every interaction of the customer with the jewelry and the jewelry store itself, more and more optical fibers would be lit, and the interior space would change every day regarding this fact and being projected and made up by the customers. In this project, we experienced and experimented with light as means. As I already said, we used light as a building material to emphasize and to materialize the idea that was behind the jewelry brand. Further on, a project that's very dear to our heart is the one regarding an interactive panel. This time we are on the next level of dematerializing light in our project, because this time it isn't a part of the project itself anymore. However, what we find as really impressive and overwhelming is the fact that even if the light is not a part of the project anymore, it influences the project, and this one could not be could not live and could not be visible if light wouldn't exist. Therefore, we used light in this project to generate movement. So at the first, in the first project, light was the main resource and the main purpose. Afterwards, it was used as a metaphor to create a relationship between customer and retailer. And in this third project, we dematerialize it even more in order to generate motion through light. How is this possible? This is a simulation of an interactive panel, which you can hopefully also see here, that's made up of a lot of pixels. The pixels are embodied by mirrors, small mirrors, and they are movable, therefore creating a dynamic field on this interactive panel. Here are some simulations on the, oops, let's go back. On the left side, there are the simulations in the software we used, and on the right side would be a panel in real life. There are also simulations, of course. A panel in real life that's imitating the image and the motion in front of it. Therefore, as I said, it's we propose a responsive mirroring surface that through movement and reflection becomes a part of the living space around it. Of course, how can we generate motion through light? How can interior architecture and some panels or some walls become dynamic and have a direct relationship between them and the users? This is what we were trying to answer. Firstly, after showing you the simulations, I will try to explain the functioning diagram of the program. Afterwards, we'll also try to see if it really works. The external input, the first phase, is a person or some object standing in front of the panel. The motion and the actual image that's in front of the panel is being recorded by a web camera that reinterprets and pixelates the image in front of the panel using the pixels that it already has, the small mirrors that I told you about. Therefore, the image in front of the panel is being transformed into a black and white image, and through the light that every pixel reflects, that image is put in front of the user in real time. By using servo motor actuators, the mirrors will move and have some inclining angles. And of course, the output is the mirrors that I talked about. What we try to emphasize in this project was the fact that a panel like this one, made up of mirrors, would reflect the environment twice. Firstly, it would reflect the environment because of the material that's used, of course, the mirrors. And secondly, it would reflect the image in front of it using these simulations and these motions that actually represent the motion in front of it by reinterpreting and rendering it through the mirrors. I would also like to strongly like to emphasize this double reflection and the dynamic breath given by the users. That means that everyone standing in front of the panel would send its own vocabulary towards the panel. That would be the motion and the image that it sends to the panel. The panel would reinterpret in its own vocabulary and afterwards render the image and send a response to the user through this moving image. How did we build something like that? Here are some images with the pixels. These are the backs of the panels and a close-up of the servomotor actuators, servomotors actually, that are at the back of the panels. This piece of interior architecture, as I said, manages to capture stimuli from its exterior. It reinterprets them and sends it out in its own way of saying it through motion and by using light, of course. We used one micro servomotor per pixel, respectively per mirror. That means that every mirror could move. Here are some nice pictures during the installation and the actual building of the wall. The last pieces. And the first experiment where we had a nice surprise and something that we didn't think about, the reflection all over the room. This is the back of a panel. It consists of the areas used for the servomotor that moves the panels, and you'll also see one in real life shortly. The process was interesting and very dynamic for us. Here's a picture of the meters of printed pixel arrays. And some of the more than 250 suction cups we used for the backs of the panels. On the back of the panel, we used these suction cups for the implementing of the motion through the servomotors. This is the first attempt of a model at a real scale. Of course, the ones implemented in the project were prettier. And here are some of the micro servomotors and the first back panels. Here's the first attempt on moving this wall by using a motion. You cannot see him very well, but there's a colleague of mine walking around the panel, in front of the panel actually. Therefore, we tried to experiment with the light as a means, as I emphasized earlier, and drew the conclusion after this project that it doesn't really need to be a part of the project itself. It doesn't have to be a purpose in itself in order for it to influence the project. Why? Because the actual image that is rendered on the panel is using the environmental light in order for it to appear. As I told you earlier, the image in front of the camera is captured and transformed into a pixelated black and white image. The white pixels stand like that and reflect the light on the artificial light inside the room. That's on the upper part of the room, of course. The black spots in the image are represented by pixels that stay like that and that reflect the lower part of the room that's darker, and all intermediary grays in that rendered picture have their own intermediary angles. After playing with these projects ourselves, we would like to also invite you to play with them. I have a laptop here and would like to invite you, especially during the break time. I'm not sure if you're seeing something right now. Probably the ones who are staying at in the front are seeing something. So this is the simulation of the panel, and you're now probably seeing yourself rendered through this number of pixels. So if you have a volunteer that wants to walk around, we will see that the panel's moving and it's rendering the thing that it sees using the camera. So the laptop's awaiting for you in the break time. As a conclusion, should light be a purpose in our project? Should light be used as means in our project? We definitely don't know an exact answer for that, and I think everybody should experience with this in their own way and in their own style. However, the most important thing that came as a conclusion after these experiments was the fact that whether we want it or not, whether we design it like that or not, light will also be the protagonist of the project. Therefore, I'm honored to be here, part of the Light Edu Symposium in Timișoara, and a part of the team I represent. And thank you very much for your attention.